What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined by my guy Morgan Cannon here. And this is your go-to place for all things Lions related, news, updates, analysis, and everything in between. Morgan, we're here for another Victory Monday. This makes 9 wins on the season for the Lions, another winning season under Dan Campbell. This one was what we thought it would be, right? Like I can't pretend like I'm shocked that they put up 50, but the Lions do win 52-6. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to our audience here. I checked out mentally before halftime. Like I was like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. And it was kind of just like on like autopilot from there.
Bro, there were some funny moments, right? Like we kind of knew, going in, and then Jacksonville hit that 59-yard field goal, but then it was all downhill. Y'all know the story. 7 straight touchdowns, 645 total yards of offense, 38 first downs. These are all astronomical, like record-setting numbers, y'all. And being there in person, been around football a little bit now, playing, coaching, watching the Lions, whatever. And you quickly kind of see when a team doesn't have that energy. And I texted my girlfriend, like, probably the end of the first quarter. So what was it, like 14-3 maybe? And I was like, this is going to be, that's all I said. I was like, this is going to be bad. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like the Titans, but worse. And it was like Jacksonville just was out there making business decisions. I don't blame them. And it just got ugly really quick, right, bro? Like, I'm sure y'all could tell from the TV too. Like they did not want to be there. That was a bad time for them.
It 100% looked like their controller had gotten disconnected. At one point in time, it was just like I was waiting for Ben Johnson to just start trying stuff. Like, I mean, obviously they did with like the hook and ladder to JMO and stuff like that, but like it didn't get nearly as bad as I thought it would. But it was, like you said, record-setting day for the Lions offensively, over 600 yards of offense, a crazy amount of production from everyone on that offense. Jared Goff has a great day. Both receivers, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and JMO, both go over 100 yards receiving. Amon-Ra has 2 touchdowns. JMO has a touchdown. Both running backs get their touchdowns. Like, it was ridiculous on the offensive end. But then you flip it over to the defensive side, and they only give up 170 yards of offense on the defense. Like, so it's such a complete team effort. Jack Fox basically got the day off, got to just hang out with the boys, never having to go out there and punt. It's putting the Lions in a very interesting place in my mind, Morgan, because again, we've seen them have hot starts. We've seen them catch fire in the middle of seasons, whether it's the Dan Campbell Lions, whether it was even times when like Matthew Stafford was leading this team and they would get hot at random times. We have never seen it like this, where it's just consistent from beginning to end. Yes, you have that one hiccup against the Bucs, but even in that game, like the Lions looked good for the most part until they got into the red zone. This team has looked like the number 1 team in football, and now they at least have the record to match it with Kansas City losing yesterday as well. I'm going to just kind of look at what Kirby Joseph said yesterday, because I think this is very much true when it comes down to anybody that has to play the Lions. Kirby said yesterday, if you're not coming ready to play, then you're going to get your ass whooped. Like, just straight up. That's what's going to happen. And I don't even think he means that in a disrespectful way, but it's like, to your point, you can't do what Jacksonville did. You can't start making business decisions. You can't just be like, well, we're down by 20, so I guess we're going to mail it in. Because the Lions don't care. They're going to run the score up for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and like it was, people that didn't watch the game are probably like, oh man, the Lions ran the score up late. They did not, folks. Like I remember it was like 42-3 or whatever it was, and like with a whole quarter to play. I remember I looked at my boy Wilson and I was like, we still got 13 minutes left, dog. I was like, we need a running clock. I said that probably 10 times the other day because I just wanted to go get in my, chill clothes and chill and kick it at home and watch Reds home. Because that game, listen, I love watching the Lions win. I'm not going to complain. Like Sweta would stab me if she heard me saying this. She loves a nice chill game. But good Lord, man, it just looked like and we know Jacksonville's talented. Their defense has been really bad. Their offense has been okay at times. But they just looked overmatched, man. And then the way the Lions play, like running through your face on offense, then they have the speed with Jamison and everybody, and then Amon-Ra is just surgical. But then defensively, like Amik had a big tackle on a screen play where he picked up dude up and basically slammed him legally. That hit that Brian Branch put on Evan Ingram.
Oh,
Evan Ingram,
my Lord.
he held onto the ball But I hope that makes it into the league meetings next year, because that's teach tape, man. That was clean. If they would have thrown a flag on that, I would have taken a shoe off and thrown it on the field, because like that was perfect. Like you can't do that. That's exactly what you're asking of these defenders, and it was legal, and he popped him. And when he got up, you saw the rest of the offense. They kind of they didn't put their head down, but it's like, this is.
Bro, you should have saw it on the TV, because they showed Evan Ingram pop up and like he looked. I was like, okay, like he's good. They showed him on the sideline on one knee and like, oh no, that hurt.
He was on his. See, I didn't even see that. That's the stuff you miss in person, but I believe it, because that was when he popped up, I was like, dang, he's tough. I didn't really think Evan Ingram had that in him, but still, kudos.
He got to the sideline. He got to the sideline in a huddle of people, and he was like, I'm gonna take this knee real quick. And the camera caught it. The camera was like, nah, bro, you ain't getting off that easy.
See. Now I felt like I don't have anything against the Jaguars, man. Their fans, like I only saw maybe like a handful of them, on Sunday. Like I saw a younger guy in a Trevor Lawrence jersey walking out, and he looked dejected, and I was like, it's going to get better, buddy. And he's like, thanks. I wasn't even trying to be an a-hole either. I was being real, like we've been there. We're Lions fans. We were there for a long time. I was going to say
that's the thing, right? Like you and I were talking about this before we started recording. I think that's the thing that separates the Lions from a lot of other teams that are going through this, is that like coaching is the thing that separates Detroit from everybody else. I know you and I did talked about this a couple weeks ago, like what makes the Lions different from all these other teams that's winning. It is the coaching staff. It is that level of energy and belief that they've been able to inject into this team, because that's the only way that you get to go from 13-1 to 9-1, right? Is that you have a consistent message and a consistent feeling of belief that hey, we are going to go out there and perform every single day, right? Like every single week that we get to go out and play, we're going to bring our best. Even if it doesn't seem like we have our best, you're going to compete as if you do. And that's the thing that I think some of these teams that have these 2-9 records or have less than 5 wins or whatever, that's the thing that they're missing, is that ability to have a coaching staff or someone in that building to inject that level of belief of hey, we still have something to fight for, even if it doesn't look like it's going our way.
No doubt. And it's the way Dan Campbell and that his staff and everyone's instilled everything from the top down, right? In this organization. And you see it, right? It's the NFL at the end of the day. That's why this is so jarring to me, because if y'all have been watching football for a long time, you don't really see games that's a game you see on Saturday, right? When Michigan is playing, who cares, right? A
school that needs some money, a school that needs a check.
We're going to pay you $1.5 million to come here and get your butt kicked, and then we're going to send you along with your check. That's what it felt like, and that's not something you see. And the Lions have had 3 of those games, really, in my opinion, now with the Cowboys, Titans, and Jaguars, right? And if you're another fan of another team, you're going to say that none of those teams are good. No doubt. I would say neither of those teams are good, man, right? The Jaguars are good right now, objectively, but they had 1-score games against the Vikings, the Packers, teams like that. They've won games too, and they don't have Trevor Lawrence now, but 2 weeks ago, they went down to the wire with the Vikings, who a lot of people regard as, one of the better teams in the NFC. So don't really give me that. It's a different, I understand context around everything, but the Lions have a lot of good wins too, man. You go at Green Bay, at Arizona. They whipped Seattle on whenever that was, Monday night. That score wasn't as close as people think it was if you watched it. So this is just a dominant team right now. And it's we're going into week 12. It's still early. Got a lot of regular season ball to play, but forgive us, man. The line since really the middle of 2002, and I know you know this, Miko. Middle of 2002, Lions started 1-6. For those of you that don't know, their owner Sheila Hamp came up and had to address the media. She was like, "Listen," because it was middle of year 2 at that point for Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, and she essentially said, "I trust these guys. I trust the vision and the plan we have in place here." Because they had been close. They had a couple games that they just kind of messed up towards the end. Dan Campbell had a faux pas in Minnesota. Remember when he cried at the podium? He was like, "That was on me." And I was like, "Yeah, buddy, that was on you. That one was." So, but since then, they finished the season 9-8. You guys know the story. They knocked Green Bay out of the playoffs, 12-5 last year. And it's gotten turned up a notch. They had a couple teams that they put the belt to what last year, but not like this, buddy. And what Kirby said, what Carlton Davis said in the media, he basically echoed Kirby's comments. Like, if you stop it, if you want, like, just the answer is to play better football is basically what he said, which I was like, so I just wanted to get that rant out, bro, because I see fans poking
needed.
holes in it, and I'm like, come on, man.
And that's the thing, right? If you're a fan and you're poking holes in what you're seeing, like, stop. You don't have to, right? You don't have to find ways of thinking that what you're seeing isn't real. This is what good teams do. Good teams beat up on bad teams, right? Like, it just happens. When Kansas City was doing it to people, ain't nobody batting an eye. When the Patriots were doing it, all those on all their Super Bowl runs, nobody was batting an eye. This is what happens when good teams meet rebuilding teams, or good teams meet teams that just aren't quite up to snuff.
Yep.
And that's essentially what it is. This one, yes, was by far the most one-sided. And I know that's saying a lot because they put up 52 on the Titans too. The Titans game at least looked interesting because it was like, oh, the offense isn't really doing all the damage. This is like a lot of special teams and defense.
Yeah. Fun to watch.
But this is just what the Lions are right now. So they're beating up on the bad teams, but they're still taking care of the good to moderately like decent teams as well. Like Houston was a wake up call. And I said this on Twitter yesterday. I feel bad for any team that has to pay the Lions after a loss or a bad performance. If you have to play them when they're coming off of a terrible performance or a loss, strap up. Like, because it's not going to be good for you. They are going to try, like, and I don't even think it's personal, Morgan. I don't even think they're trying to personally embarrass the teams. I think it's more so a message to the world, because the world comes out talking. After that Houston game, people came out talking, hey, is Detroit really as good as we think they are? Is Jared Goff really deserving to be in the MVP conversation? You get a game like Jacksonville, and it's like, all right, maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves.
Exactly. Like, it's a week-to-week league. Like, there were some bad bounces. People, like, we talked about it up and down. It wasn't just Jared Goff making a ton of bad decisions against Houston. Some of that was just bad luck. But the defense bowed up, man. The defense came, held them to a field goal, forced 2 turnovers. And that's what really good teams do. And Houston's a good team, in my opinion. Like, they're a player in the AFC. But, yeah, we're going to be talking, like, if you see Lions fans, I'm in Detroit, so everyone's just hype right now. But if you're around the country and people want to say something like, nah, tell them to kick rocks, man, because this doesn't happen. Y'all watch the NFL just like we do, man. I'm not preaching to y'all, but like, games like that don't happen often. 52-6. That's a Alabama versus Chattanooga State score. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the yardage too, like the everything. That was crazy. Doug Peterson's probably going to get fired.
College football on freshmen. That's college football 25 on freshmen, bro. Like,
just stupid stuff.
That's the type of numbers that you put up.
Like that play Jameer had where he got clipped, where I was like, if he scores on this is going to be a top 10. Because, like, he was just like running,
If that had happened, like, I think you would start seeing, like, even Jacksonville players would be like, bro, I'm going home. Like, this can't keep happening.
That was bad too, bro. He looked like he was in fast forward. But yeah, we'll get off this high horse. But we just wanted everyone to, because I got into it with Philly fans today on Twitter. I need to get off Twitter, period. I'm transitioning to Blue Sky. Follow us there. We're all over there now. But yeah,
bro, I'm with you. And listen, we're going to transition because there are other things to talk about. But I think in the same vein, it is like debunking a couple things that we're going to be doing in this video today, because I think there is a lot of like overreaction, or again, like nitpicking when it comes to this team. And in terms of an overreaction, I mentioned it a minute ago. Last week, we know what happened with Jared Goff, right? 5 interceptions in Houston. You fast forward to this week. What is it? 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdown passes? This week against Jacksonville, I believe that Jared Goff should still be in the MVP conversation. The question, though, matters on whether or not he should still be leading it. And so, Morgan, you were at the game, obviously, so you didn't get to see the broadcast. But when they, like, during the broadcast, they basically showed, like, hey, these are the 5 MVP frontrunners as CBS saw it. And they had Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and Jared Goff. Of those 5, where would you have Jared Goff slotted right now in terms of the MVP race?
Excuse me. Man, that's tough. I would put him either 3 or 4. Probably 3, just above the 2 running backs, because I like that group that CBS ran out there. I would go Josh Allen, just because I think he's the best player in football, along with Penei Sewell. I'm not even being hyperbolic, y'all. If y'all If y'all read my stuff, I'm being serious. But Josh Allen's playing like a dog, man. Like the way he closed that game out yesterday against Kansas City was some superhero stuff. I still have Lamar at 2 just because he does so much for that team. Then I'd go Goff and Saquon and then Derrick Henry, because I think the Eagles' offense is if you took Saquon away, they could be pretty flawed, because I know their offensive line's still good, but he's such a difference maker, with the ball in his hands. So I'd probably go there, and just, a lot of it's narrative driven, as y'all know. Like if you're watching this, you know how it is. Like a lot of it's narrative driven. So, and Buffalo's playing well. Like they've had a couple hiccups here and there, but they're looking like they could maybe be the best team in the AFC. So I think that matters. What about you?
Yeah, I think I have a very similar order to yours. The only thing I would flip-flop is Lamar versus Josh Allen. I have Lamar just slightly ahead, and it really just depends on how you look at MVP. Like, are you looking at it in terms of just the most valuable player to their team? Because I think that's where Josh Allen could probably edge out Lamar Jackson. He's clearly the most valuable player on any individual team right now in the NFL. But if it's by performance, Lamar has been very consistent. I know they have a few more losses than they have 3-4 losses now in the season. It's not looking great in terms of wins, but again, we don't believe in quarterback wins over here at Pride of Detroit. But when you look at just how Lamar Jackson has been performing all season, he's probably been one of the more consistent players of the top 5 that we were just now talking about. Like he's consistently putting up good numbers, passing and rushing, touchdowns, he's doing all the things. Where I think Lamar Jackson is probably going to fall off is voter fatigue, right? He's already won the award twice, I believe. Yeah. So there's a level of voter fatigue that's probably going to play into it. So that's why I'm not going to scoff at Josh Allen being your number 1. But I do think Jared is doing enough. And if he continues to have weeks like this, he still has some very good games ahead of him. You get Jared Goff against Josh Allen head to head, and if Jared outplays him, Jared Goff is going to shoot up the list when it comes down to MVP. You get that rematch against the 49ers. If Jared has a good performance against them, again, skyrocket him up the MVP frontrunner list. I don't think it's completely out of reach. And I think people were getting a little ahead of themselves when it's he threw 5 picks. He had the bad game against Tennessee. First of all, he didn't have a bad game against Tennessee. He never got to get started in Tennessee, against that game.
That was an anomaly.
Right. And so he's realistically had one bad game, which is that Houston game. I think he has more than enough time. He has 3 or 4 games this season where he's had a perfect passer rating. You can't ignore that just because of one game where he threw 5 picks. And I'm with you on the 2 running backs. I would have Saquon and then Derrick Henry at 5. I think they're both having great seasons. I think Derrick Henry's good season is partially in part because he's playing next to Lamar Jackson. And I agree with you on the whole Saquon part. You take Saquon out of the Eagles offense, and I do think they would struggle mightily.
They still struggle sometimes. And they've gotten it together here these last, they've won 5 or 6 games in a row. But yeah, I love your Baltimore point, because I think I watch a lot of the Ravens, and the Ravens defense is not what it was when it has been this year. They're a little bit susceptible to getting punched in the mouth. It's not the defense. They lost some guys, right? And they've gotten banged up. I think Roquan went out yesterday.
Yeah, losing Roquan. I mean, losing Patrick Queen to the Steelers. They lost talent in some meaningful places, and their secondary just hasn't played well. I mean, again, they have a rookie corner in Nate Wiggins out there playing, and so he's going to take some time to adjust. And Kyle Hamilton hasn't been quite himself this year. And again, I think some of that's injury and all of those things as well. But yeah, the constant for that team has been Lamar. He's continuing to do it at a high level.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the Derrick Henry point, because when it's just something that you have to account for as a defense when you're playing against Lamar, that just makes life a touch easier if you're Derrick Henry. Not that he's not a surefire Hall of Famer whenever he's done, man. He's incredible. So, but yeah, Goff definitely has a case, bro. He's completing 73% of his passes, 20 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. 9-1, and he's shown up. The Lions win on prime time. They've won some big games. They've been in some tight spots, and I'm a big Jared. Me and you were not Jared Goff fans 2 years ago, and I
was going to say thank you.
And we've come, for those of you who've been watching for a while, you're yeah, we know, because we used to get the entire POD staff really used to get labeled as Goff haters. And I'm like, y'all, it was just looking at what we were seeing, what he was showing us on the field, you know what I mean? But that has all changed. And it's been one of the more remarkable things I've ever seen as a fan of sports, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like this whole
it's one of the
resurrection.
most, and I think it's also one of the most tangible things. Like, right, like if you're not just wearing Honolulu blue glasses when watching the Lions, you can tell the difference when Jared is playing good and versus when he's having his off days. And I don't think there's ever anything wrong with any player on any team in the NFL of pointing out like, hey, they're having an off day, right? Obviously, like the thing that we have to like guard ourselves against is like burying players because they have a bad performance. Hence the 5 interception game. Like, you don't bury a player because they have a bad performance. If they have a string of bad games, all right, we need to start having a conversation about like what the hell's going on with so and so. But Jared has shown, just like the rest of this team, has shown an amazing ability to bounce back from bad performances. 5 picks a week ago, 4 touchdowns, perfect passer rating, 24 of 29. Dude was lights out. Like there's nothing else to really say about it other than that.
Yeah, everything was so in tune. Like him and St. Brown almost like have like a telekinetic connection at this point, I swear.
And it's getting there with J-Mo. Like you can start to see it where it's like, I don't know, there's certain passes that he throws where I'm like, I know that's going to J-Mo. Just like the way that it comes out of his hand, I'm just like, that's a J-Mo ball.
There's one that J-Mo like kind of got tripped up like on his route and Goff threw it to a spot. And that was another one that if J-Mo caught, he'd have been running for a while. But he kind of like it was like incidental, so they weren't going to throw the flag. But I was like, ooh, because they love to get them. They basically run some clear out routes. And then they run the drag from J-Mo from the, from the backside.
I remember what you're talking about.
And it's a simple concept, but it's tough to defend because Jameson's so fast, man. And then he did the Marshawn. Like I was geeked up, bro, when he did the, you know what?
Bro, it's going to cost him a pretty penny, but it was so worth it.
Yeah.
I'm loving like all of his tribute celebrations this year. He did the Megatron. He did the Marshawn. Like who's next?
Do the Chad Johnson to get the thing out and say, "Dear NFL, please don't find me again."
Oh, that'd be great.
Funny.
But all right. So we talked about the offense. We got to talk about the defense because this is another unit that's, again, I think people are nitpicking a little bit. Morgan, they play against Jacksonville last week. Yesterday. Sorry, and they give up only 170 yards worth of yardage to them. Right, basically shut them down on the ground like they've been doing to just about everybody this year. Nothing in the air. And I think that's where you're starting to see like the most criticism come in with the Lions. And so the one thing that I did want to ask is, why do you think the Lions are giving up so many passing yards when it comes down to like total yards? Because some people are talking about like, hey, this defense is giving up way too many passing yards. Why do you think, first of all, why do you think that is? And 2, is it even really like a concern?
Well, you can just, you look at the context, right? That's why we've moved around from like away from some of these counting stats to just like make a determination, right? Like if y'all don't know, like Miko's in data, man. So like he's gonna, be able to, he knows what I'm talking about and he'll make, probably put it in a better way. But yards per game, think about it. The Lions first of all, no one can run, right? So we factor that in there. So some of these teams just abandon it. Other teams do like the Texans did and hand it to Joe Mixon 25 times and get 46 yards out of it. I respect D'Amico Ryans for that and sticking to the run, but at a certain point, there's some diminishing returns right there, man. That's terrible. So a lot of these teams just say, bump it, basically. We got to throw it because we can't run the ball because they got DJ Reader and Aleem and everyone else and Levi in there. And Za'Darius now. It's not fun. It's not a fun unit to run against. And so you're down and you're having to throw the ball, and the Lions play a lot of man coverage, man. So they're going to give up receptions. But if you look at it like passer rating, EPA per play, team DVOA metrics on defense, like they're a top unit. They're a top 10 unit, just about everything. So yeah, I think some people are just making grand declarations about the Lions secondary being bad because of yards per game, just to be contrarian and get clicks and views. And we won't name those people because they're not worth it. But the other people, Philly fans, they're talking like to Lions fans, really just that, the defense is bad. Like the Lions are just this amazing offense. I'm like, that is not the case anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Like that, they're really good, elite against the run, maybe the best in football, and they're rapidly getting better against the pass. They play a lot of man coverage, so if that's a bad matchup, then that's going to be a tough day because they're going to get in your chest. Their safeties, the safety duo, Kirby, Joseph, and Brian Branch, probably the best in football. I'd hear some arguments, but I don't, I think they're the best in football. The
I
numbers
won't even
speak for
hear
themselves.
arguments.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying.
If we're talking duos, you're not.
They're the best. I know, and they're
easily,
young babies.
hands down right now.
Kirby's third year, Brian Branch too, another Brad Holmes masterclass. But yeah, to that, like you talked about, Miko, put it in those terms you were telling me. Like metrics are tools, not just a defining. You know what I mean?
And they are, right? So as someone that again, my day job is to be a data translator and a data analyst, in like other roles, you should not, in any circumstances, be using one metric to answer such a broad question, right? If you are trying to answer the question of like, hey, do the Lions have a bad pass defense? The last thing you should be looking at is total passing yards allowed or passing yards per game. If you're going to go down that road, go down the entire length of it. Start looking at, okay, how many first downs are they giving up through the air? How many yards per passing attempt are they giving up? How many pass breakups? Like you have to start to analyze this from a much more like in-depth perspective than just being like, well, I found this one metric. This one metric has them at 28th, 30th, whatever in the list. Because if we use that type of logic, Morgan, the Lions, I think when you and I were first talking about, the Lions were like 28th when it came down to like passing yards allowed. Do you guys know who's first in allowing the least? First and second, the Jets and Titans. Would you want to have the Jets and Titans record? I'm sure most of you would say no, right? Like to Morgan's point, there is so much context that goes into it. So when you start using metrics, when you start throwing around numbers, again, I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't use, but it's just understand that if you want to have a strong argument, if you want to have something that people should really have faith in, try to find as many other metrics that support that one number. Because if you start with, hey, they give up a lot of passing yards, the next question you should ask is why? And how does this look? And in what form or fashion? Because like Morgan said, we don't allow a lot of teams to run the ball on us. So you have to throw the ball to even get any type of yardage. Also, look at when is that yardage coming? Like, when are the Lions giving up the most yardage? Morgan, you and I have been talking about the last couple of weeks. AG's been doing such a great job with his halftime adjustments. When you look at what the Titans did, where Calvin Ridley went off in that first half, go back and look at how many passing yards or how many receiving yards Calvin Ridley had in the second half. Like, there's certain aspects of that where there's just, if you do enough digging, you start realizing like, hey, that's not all that true. And again, if you don't like advanced metrics that Morgan was talking about when it comes to DVOA and EPA, like, I understand it. They're confusing and they're new and they may not seem like they're something that you should rely on, but there are other metrics that you can just use. Like I said, how many first downs are they giving up? How many total, like, first of all, what do you consider a bad passing defense day? Because for me, it's 300 yards passing. Like, if you're giving up over 300 yards passing, you have a bad pass defense. The Lions have done that twice this season. Only twice have they given up over 300 yards passing. So there's so much nuance that has to kind of go into these types of numbers. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. If you are trying to nitpick this team and trying to figure out, okay, are they really as good as they are? You don't have to dig as deep as some of you may want to. Look at the score, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. The Lions have only allowed 3 teams, Morgan, I believe, 3 or 4 teams to score over 20 on them this entire season, and they're 9-1. That's not a bad defense. It takes such a good defense to hold teams under 21 points.
There's over 21.
Still, 3 times over 21. This is a good defensive unit. Aaron Glenn has done a phenomenal job with this defense, despite them losing Derek Barnes, despite them losing Aiden Hutchinson, despite them, again, having a rookie corner out there who definitely had his struggles. Terrion absolutely had his struggles those first couple of weeks.
Definitely.
He's getting better. And I'll tell you the same thing I said back when he was having those struggles. Pass interference is so subjective. Very few of the pass interferences that Terrion was getting actually concerned me, right? It wasn't Jerry Jacobs, like, where he's literally just like out there having a fist fight
grabbing people
on the outside, right? It's timing. It's all of those things that he is going to get better at as he becomes a veteran in this league. So PSA to those that are worried about the defense, that feel like maybe this could come off the rails. If you want to go into the numbers, dive in fully. Don't just put your toe in and just look at some of these top level numbers. Look at the advanced metrics. Look and pair up some of these things to say if they are actually like cohesive with what you think. And you'll get the answers that you're looking for. You don't have to just stay surfacey.
Yep. 100%, man. Couldn't have said any better. Because, people just try to make declarations. And at the end of the day, man, you got to give teams their flowers. Like, I really don't like the Vikings, but they're a good team because their defense is good. Do I think they're descending because Sam Darnold? Yeah. But some of these other fan bases, like Philly, for instance, like, it wasn't that long ago y'all were talking about, does Nick Sirianni need to be fired? And now all of a sudden you guys are going to just run through the Lions. I don't think Philly fans are going to watch this, but yeah.
Hey, listen, if you are a Philly fan and you're watching this, you guys are one loss. Let's be real. You guys are one loss away from losing your minds again. Yep. Like them fired Nick Sirianni's chance will be back in a quickness.
Fickle fan base, yeah. Ugh.
So we got a little bit on the soapbox today, right? We definitely celebrated the win, but there were some things that, listen, this team is winning, and I get it. It's new for a lot of us. 9-1. Tied for the best record in the NFL, looking like, or not even just looking like, but now the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. Like there are so many things that are just, it's new territory. And I get that for some fans, it's waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't have to. You can enjoy what is happening. If you want to, like, if you're actually just curious, look into it. But if you're trying to nitpick, don't.
Yeah.
Sit back.
Especially if you're a fan of the Lions. Enjoy it, man. They're beating the crap out of it. And you know what? They're probably going to lose a regular season game or two the rest of the way, but that's what happens because it is a week-to-week league and things like the Texans game or the Bucs game happen. And it's just the way it is. And that's why football is a beautiful game. But the most important thing is we're going to continue to talk about it every week, baby. But 2 words, 1 seed. I want that thing.
Absolutely. And that's all we should all be focused on at this point. Getting that 1 seed, getting home field advantage, playing even more home football games at Ford Field in the playoffs. It's going to be a dream come true. So that's pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. If you have any other thoughts, opinions on the game, on Jared Goff's MVP odds, when it comes down to the defense, what do you think about this defense? Let us know all of that in the comment section below. If you are looking for any more additional Lions content, we say it every single video. Head over to prideofdetroit.com. There are new articles being uploaded all the time. And I forgot to be plugging this. We are doing our Movember charity. I don't know how I forgot to be plugging this, but we are doing our Movember charity. If you see us go live on YouTube, on Twitch, please go check it out. Jeremy and the guys are doing some hilarious things for money.
Yeah.
And it's going to a great cause. I don't know about you, Morgan, but it's one of the best things that we do here at Pride of Detroit. Obviously, we get to talk about the Lions. Jeremy and Eric get to obviously cover them and be there in person. But this, I can probably speak for the entire staff when I say this is the thing that we enjoy more than anything that we get to do every single year. So again, if you are able to support, please do. If not, again, definitely check out the live streams when they
for sure, man. We did that Hot One stream this past weekend. So if you want some laughs, go, click through that. It's pretty good. That was terrible.
I actually got to watch that because I'm sure it's hilarious.
Oh, bro.
You guys are braver people than me, but that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you for always checking us out, supporting us, and go Lions.